points. This is a 1978 50 watt JMP. It's non-master volume. It's a 1987 circuit, and it's in pretty okay condition. This is my first observation looking at this thing just for a few minutes now. It's had a few things replaced, which is to be expected given the age of the amp. There's a new pot here, the treble volume, no bright cap on this, right? And you can see there's been some work here. Some tech's got in there and decided that the amp needed some glue or whatever. And you can see if a number of these coupling caps, these white ones would have been the original kind of chiclet style caps, and you can see that a number of them over the journey have been replaced. Most of these resistors look pretty original, and you can see a few have been replaced. There's an old carbon comp 33k in there as a slope resistor. It's not original. Bias caps have been replaced, but bizarrely with two different values. That's a 10 microfarad, which is what you'd normally see, and that's a 22 microfarad. So maybe the dude that did that, that's all he had on hand. So the job for this amp today is a bit of a restoration, actually. So this will be a nice job, a nice satisfying job to do. And the amp is owned by Luke, who I first met because the 1981 gold top Les Paul that you might have seen me play on the channel used to belong to Luke, and this amp is his, and he's brought it in along with this cache of goodies which we're going to use for the restoration job. So he's invested in putting together an ensemble of new old stock mustards. So we've got 0.68, we've got 0.1s, we've got what have we got here, 0.022, and over here, oh, we've got even more. So 2200 picofarad, so that's 0.0022 mic, and he's got some old awesome 4700 picofarad 1K old ceramics there. So that's killer. That's going to be a great bright cap. So we're going to use these parts supplied by Luke to do this restoration work. This will be a fun job. I love doing this work on these old amps. So just in terms of some of the things I've noticed, okay, this old pink wiring will be original factory wiring. This grey thing is coming off the tone stack, is making its way all the way across to the base pot and then back to the mid. Kind of weird. You never normally see that. This guy would normally just come up to this lug, and then from here you go across to the base pot. So that's weird. It does have a 0.1 microfarad presence cap, and that'll be a 25k linear with the 4k7 in parallel with it, which is cool. I like the 0.1. I'm not a fan of the 0.68 presence cap, just a personal thing. And what I wanted to go through, and this is kind of like one of the rudimentary checks that you should do, or you can do on your own amp like this, particularly with these old resistors, right? They will drift and move over time, and there are a number of spots in here, not all of them, but the majority of them definitely can be measured in circuit and checked. Okay, so let's go through those now. I'll actually go through every single one, and I'll tell you which ones can be measured and which ones can't, and it kind of becomes obvious when you actually start looking at them. This is the first cathode resistor. It should be 820. Okay, so that's fine, completely fine. This guy here is the cathode resistor for the treble channel, and I already know because I can see it. 4K7 is an incorrect value for a stock Marshall, and so either this was wrong at the factory, which is quite possible, right? And it does look like a factory resistor, right? Marshall could have easily just run out. That's a 4K7 resistor. It should be 2K7. and a plexi. Okay, so we will change that. The resistor actually hasn't drifted, it's fine. It's just not the right value. These are 68K grid stoppers, which when you measure them, you'll measure half. If there's nothing plugged into the jacks here, you'll measure them, you'll get half of 68. And likewise with these two. Okay, so they're probably okay. You can put a guitar cable in here to deactivate the switched jacks on here, and you get a more accurate measurement there. But look, you know, the fact that I'm getting exactly half here, I'm happy with that. These are the 100K plate resistors. You should be able to measure these. Yep, that's fine. And that's not fine. Okay, there's 100K by the resistor codes, but measuring 137K, that's drifted enough that I would want to replace that. While we're here, let's just check that doesn't look factory, the way that's wired, but anyway. This is the 100K resistor, plate resistor for V2A, 105. It's okay. These get subjected to a lot of heat and can actually be susceptible to drifting. I think the worst I've seen on here was about 470, which made the amp essentially not work. So moving along, these are the 470K mixer resistors, and the value that you'll get on here will be a bit all over the place, and it's because, and let me demonstrate, these connect to the wipers respectively of each of these volumes, right, and then connect together, right? So this one here is connected to this wiper, this one here is connected to that wiper, and then they join together. So if I get a reading on here and then turn the pot, you see either pot, they're all over the place. So you can put the pots on 10 and you'll get something, you won't get 470, but you'll get close to. Or you can put them on 0, and a little bit like the 68K resistors, you should get a reading that's half. Pretty close, right? So kind of okay with that. This resistor here, I can see has been changed. It's been changed from the top, so someone snipped off the old resistor and then tack soldered it in. This is the cathode for V2A. Should be 820, sometimes 1K. And that's 1.5, and that's actually a 1.5K resistor, so it's the wrong value for this spec amp. This is the 100K cathode for the cathode follower. It's been replaced, it's actually bang on. 33K tone stack, slope resistor for the tone stack. Okay, that measures okay. These 10K drop-in resistors, you can't measure them in circuit. You'll just get weird results. Like that. Kind of like, eventually gets down to 2, but down to 10, sorry, but they do bounce all over the place. Moving to the phase inverter. So this is our 1 meg, 470, 1 meg, and a 10K tail. And you can measure all of these in circuit, no problem. Alright, 1 meg, close enough to. A little bit under, but I'm okay with that. Given it's a vintage amp, I don't want to change it unnecessarily. 1 meg, close enough. 10K, bang on 10K, so we're all happy there. Negative feedback resistor you cannot measure in circuit. Alright, just not going to happen for you. Moving to the output of the phase inverter, the bias splitter resistors 220K aside, you can measure these in circuit. Okay, they're okay. These are the plate resistors for the phase inverter, 82K on this side. That's okay. And 100K on this side. That's okay. Right, and then we're into basically the bias network, okay? And I never have a need really to, like, as long as the bias is working and it's the adjustment is within the range, I don't tend to worry about these too much. You can measure the screen grid resistors too, right? Again, they should be measuring 1K. and there we go, 1K. Right, so we've got a few here to replace. Mostly though, the job will be taking out all these coupling caps and replacing them with the new old stock mustards that Luke has supplied. The rest of this wiring all looks original in factory and unmolested, and I'm happy about that. And you can see at the back of the amp, right, the original mains and output selectors are all original. So this thing, all in all, is in fantastic shape. That can cap, that mains filter cap is loose. Just literally moved in my hand, so we'll check all the clamps on all of that, make sure it's all cool. I will be popping this board out. Like, to get these boards out, there's a little bit of, you just got to be careful with it, right? You don't need to unsolder all of this and lift the whole board out. I concentrate on basically flipping it, and if you desolder the choke and this yellow wire which is going off to the screen filter cap, or the filter cap for the screens, then you can get enough movement on the board to be able to get underneath it and successfully kind of pull these things out without having to do any kind of, minimizing the chances of damaging the board, which these are relatively fragile. Not as fragile as the original ST1 boards that Marshall came out with in the early 70s. It's certainly not a robust through-hole plated double-sided PCB like you'd see in a modern amplifier. Okay, so just to demonstrate how I might kind of work on one of these without, going to the extreme of desoldering everything. If you pull these jacks out, right, so just kind of unscrew, from the front, take the fiber washers, put them in your little parts bin, and I just had to desolder, which was very ordinarily done anyway. This is the bias ground, which was on this bus bar here, and with these out the way and that disconnected, I can get this almost vertical. And if I just flip this a little bit, you see, I'll just protect the bottom of the amp here. There's more than enough opportunity to get in there and carefully desolder components from the bottom without damaging the PCB.